Our next guest is a CBS Sports NCAA basketball analyst, also a former Duke and NBA player. Mike Boschetti, tell the world who our next guest is.
Is he a big guy physically? I don't want to screw his name up. I mean,
probably.
Mike, we need his name.
Okay. Hi, buddy. I'm sorry if I screwed this up, but it's Alaa Abdelnaby.
Insanely wrong.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, Alaa, I apologize. It's Alaa Abdelnaby, and I apologize.
All you got to do is say every letter.
I know, and he doesn't understand that. Want to try it one more time? Try it one more time.
I work with a Wally Zerbiak, and that doesn't. It's not spelled anything like it's pronounced.
No, I know. That guy's being deceiving. You're being fine. It's like Sade with S-A-D-E. You want to strangle her. You know?
Alaa, if you ever come here, you can tackle me on site. Don't worry, buddy.
No, he's not going to want to do that. But Alaa, thanks so much.
How you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much for doing the show. Okay, first of all, upset city, baby. I mean, this is crazy. The tournament, have you ever seen a tournament crazier than this? I don't think I have.
No, it hasn't. We knew coming in because, this is what we do. We cover the sport all season long, and it seemed like all season long, whenever some team got to be number one, the next week they get knocked off. And it happened like 5 or 6 times, maybe even more. So going into the tournament, you knew it was going to be unpredictable. I had to make a bracket up like at 6:30 that night on Sunday, and I'll tell you what, if you look at it right now, it's full of chicken scratch, man. I couldn't be more wrong.
Well, I had Georgetown.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I had Georgetown in my final game, losing to Michigan State. Yeah, right, exactly. Now, the big controversy, I'll get to Florida Gulf Coast in a second, but the big controversy is Ohio State, Iowa State, this call. Where's your opinion land on that?
You know what, pal? It's easy to look at it, I guess, because you see it 30, 40 times on replay, and you're thinking to yourself, well, how could he have not seen it? It's a lot easier for us to be sitting here on our couch or in the studio watching it and thinking, you know what, Iowa State got screwed. That seems to happen to them a lot. That happened to them when they were beating Kansas at their place, and they got robbed by the officials. So I don't know if that's just who they are, or I think it's since it's happened to them earlier before, now all of a sudden say, well, you know what? This is who they are. It happens to them. So it must have happened against Ohio State too. But I wouldn't want to be the referee, would you? I mean,
no.
That's a tough thing to do, especially in that building in Dayton. How do you go against Ohio State in Dayton?
Tough
call. If you want to make it to the airport alive.
You're right.
So, I mean, I'm not saying that stuff comes into play, but it's got to at least go into your mind when you're walking into the arena as the referee. You got to know where you are.
Sure.
But Alaa, why do they not institute instant replay just for crucial moments like that? I mean, this is the biggest stage of all.
Well,
why not?
These games are long enough anyway with commercials and everything, but that's a good point, Alaa. It's a good point.
But no, it is a good point. I couldn't agree with you guys more. If it matters so much, let's get it right.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think there's an old school mentality where it's kind of like, I watch soccer. I know you probably hate soccer, but I watch soccer, and there's the mentality of, you know what? We can put all of this technology on the field and see if the ball goes past the goal line and whatnot. But there's something to the human, I guess, frailty of it. The referees can get it wrong. That's part of it, too. I don't agree with it. But there's people out there who think like that. I guess it's an old school mentality.
Right. No, I agree with you. The human error aspect of it is amazing, unless you lose a bet. Then you want to.
Or if you're on Iowa State.
Right. Yeah. Then you want to strangle somebody. Florida Gulf Coast. Can you or any one of your colleagues who are so-called experts, can any of you claim that you saw that one coming?
Listen, the only thing I said going into the Georgetown game, I happened to be on the air all afternoon. And I'm not going to take credit for it because I didn't see this coming. Who did?
Right.
But the only thing I said was that this team has some ball players.
Right.
And they've got some size, so they're not going to get pushed around. That's the only thing I said. But I said it as in, well, Georgetown's going to win. We know this, but this team isn't going to lie down. And I couldn't have been more wrong. They dominated Georgetown. And the way they played the other night, yesterday, it wasn't a fluke. You know what I mean? The way they beat around the team yesterday. I mean, it wasn't a fluke. What you could say, hey, listen, they had Georgetown's number. It was a matchup thing. But they've got some players that can play. Sherwood Brown can play. Comer can play. Feeler can play. Those guys, you just don't get to see them. And the interesting thing, I don't know if you guys noticed it after the game when they interviewed the Florida Gulf Coast coach. He said, listen, you're going to be playing Florida coming up. And he said, well, we tried to scrimmage them earlier in the year, and they wouldn't scrimmage.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I guess he's not over it yet. You know what I mean? Which is going to make for a great matchup. You know what I mean? They're in the same state. They're probably going to be hearing about each other through third parties, people talking a lot of smack. It's going to make for a fun matchup next weekend.
Alaa, these Florida Gulf Coast players, most of them, I would assume, are guys who didn't get recruited by Florida, by the big schools. Why is it that they look so much more athletic, so much more exciting? Is that emotion? Or is that scheme? And if it's scheme, does that mean everyone else needs to cut it loose too? Because they're all over the place out there.
Well, I'll tell you what I think part of it is too. I think when you say that they weren't recruited, a lot of these guys are late bloomers. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys grow into the players that they are later on in college. A lot of these guys in high school never get coached, so they don't look as good as they possibly could in high school. So then when they finally do run into a coach like Infield who can coach and teach them the fundamentals and break the game down for them, they're all going to get better. So I think it's a little bit of everything, you know what I mean? The fact that, hey, some of these kids didn't have the grades to get into a Stanford or a Duke, so then they opted because they're local to stay in Florida Gulf Coast. You never know. There's a myriad of reasons, but I think the talent level has kind of spread out even more. You know what I mean? I think that's why you see a Butler. That's why you see a Gonzaga, a VCU, because I think a lot of guys, instead of going to a Kentucky where they've got to wait for minutes or fight with another All-American, McDonald's All-American, they get to go to VCU and play every day. And if you like the way they play, because a lot of people like the up-tempo style that the Rams play, then that's a perfect place for you. So a lot of other schools are becoming more attractive, but Florida Gulf Coast has athletes. They've got shooters. And the best thing they've got going for them, and you look at the Sweet 16, most of the teams that are left in the Sweet 16 play real good defense. And that's what this team does too. I mean, yeah, they'll score and they'll run up and down with you, but they'll check people and get up in your face and put your hands on you and force steals and turnovers and then run down and dunk on you. So it doesn't look like they're playing out of character. It looks like they've been playing like this all season long. We just haven't seen them.
Right. No, I listen, I think that this country in particular, I mean, basketball, from Dr. J through Bird and Magic and then Michael Jordan, now with LeBron and everybody else, basketball has become such a popular sport to play around the country. I just think this country is going to start producing an abundance of amazing basketball players who are good students and are going to be flooding the NCAA. I mean, do you think there's anything to that? That there's just going to be a lot more talent?
I agree. There's a lot more. Listen, the world is getting smaller, too, so you're getting kids from all over the world. Ever since '92, when that first Dream Team played in Barcelona, everybody plays basketball now.
Right.
Every corner of the earth. I was in China for the Olympics, and there's basketball all over there. And they play, obviously the Olympics, there was every sport under the sun, but it just seemed like basketball was their number one sport. In China, on an average Tuesday night, 300 million people will watch a game. That's more than
God.
in the whole country. You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's just a regular Tuesday night, not a special game. That's just the game we have shown on Tuesday night. 300 million people watch. So,
yeah, and in this country, the Real Housewives of Orange County is a hit with 1.2 million viewers. Yeah, it's nuts. Hey, now. I got to say, though, that the Florida Gulf Coast game for a while against Georgetown, if you watch the highlights, those kids are so athletic. For a while, it looked like the Harlem Globetrotters playing the Washington Generals. I mean, they were like alley-oops all over the place. And
exactly. I even tweeted, I said, these guys are clowning Georgetown.
They were.
Because they were just, I mean, it's one thing to beat up on them, which they were doing, but it was the way they were doing it. They were just having fun with them. High-fiving the guys. The one kid, Sherwood Brown, is going over to the to the scorer's table, to the announcer's table, and greeting the guys on the air, talking to them in the middle of the game. And like, I played for a guy, Coach K. If I tried any of that stuff,
forget it.
I'd never see the court.
For a while there, it looked like they were going to do the confetti in the bucket water trick.
You got to figure that these kids.
You're a little sweet Georgia Brown.
Exactly.
You got to figure that these kids love playing like that.
Sure.
At that level of emotion and speed and just aerial maneuvers and just fun. Now, is this something where imitation will be the sincerest form of flattery, and you're going to have Indiana changing their style? And you're going to have Ohio State changing their style. Is this a trend as we move forward?
You know what? Remember we talked about the old school mentality? Coaches are like that too. So I don't know if that'll happen right away. I think what will happen is Florida Gulf Coast is going to have an easier time recruiting.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. There's a lot of guys that are going to want to go there and play that way because, let's face it, the one thing we saw is those kids looked like they were having fun out there.
They did, absolutely.
Don't think that the kids at home who are 13, 14, they're not watching that and going, you know what? Yeah, it's a small little school, but look what they're doing. I might consider going there. So it's going to help them. Their profile is going to be, this is a school that started off in trailers. I can't imagine going to class in a trailer, man.
Right.
That would just be too hardcore for me. But look where they are now. You know what I mean? They're building a brand new arena from what I've been listening, from what I've been told. So they're probably going to wind up filling the thing up next year with what they've done so far.
Alaa, talk a little bit about, while we got you here, it's always fun to talk to a guy who played for an organization like Duke. What was it like, detail-wise, playing for a guy like Coach Krzyzewski? Like from the beginning to the end, just what do you learn from a guy like that you don't think you learn from somebody else?
Well, you know what? I don't want to discredit him by just saying it was limited to basketball. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was a guy. I mean, he went to Army, played under Coach Knight. He was a psychology major from West Point. I mean, you don't think he knew how to push buttons and get guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're talking about an interesting guy, man, on a lot of levels.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's the funny thing. We went on a trip in 1988. I told this story before. We went on a European trip to play against all the national teams. So it was Russia when Russia was still one country, Yugoslavia the same when they were still one country. We played, all of them. I don't even know how he got it set up. Little old Duke playing against all these big European giants. So we're playing the Russian team, and after the game with Russia, the team, I guess in the Russian Basketball Federation, wanted to have a little banquet in our honor. So the Russian generals were sitting at the head table, and he's sitting there with Coach K. And now you got to remember, Coach K is a Polish guy.
Right.
And the Poles and the Russians don't, really get along too well
Exactly.
with each other, historically speaking. So he's sitting there, and the Russian general gets up. Now, he's got the full uniform on with the epaulets and the medals and everything. And back in '88, they were still our enemy. So it was a little awkward.
Definitely.
Coach didn't toast. Yeah, Coach didn't toast. Because at the time, my coach didn't drink.
Right.
He didn't drink. Now I'll go back, I'll see him in the summer, and the man's a wine connoisseur. And he'll sit there and he'll talk to me about how good this Cabernet is, or I got to try this Syrah, and this, Grisio's out of this. And I'm saying, like, what did you do with my coach, dude? What happened to the guy I used to know who was so straight-laced and tight-lipped and, close to the vest, all those cliches they used to apply. And now, he's got 8 grandkids. He mellows out. I think I've seen him smile a little bit more. But, he has changed. But the things he taught me, Artie, were the same things that I still carry with me day in and day out. Always look someone in the eye. Always make sure you do exactly what you're going to say you're going to do. Make sure you're the hardest working guy there. First one in, last one to leave. Just the simple things that you can apply to basketball, but it's amazing. I only played for him for 4 years, but the stuff he's taught me has lasted for 25. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think there's more to it than just X's and O's with him. He was a guy who got the best. It was the hardest thing I ever went through. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I mean, those 4 years in college, the NBA and playing afterwards, I played 11 years afterwards. That was easy compared to my 4 years with him.
It's good, though. It's good preparation.
I'm sorry?
It's good preparation, though, right?
Oh, it was the best preparation.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. When I got to the league, I was in shape. I knew the game, and I knew exactly what made me good. So I stuck with that. You know what I mean? All those things he taught me how to do that, I don't think a lot of coaches pass on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, listen, how funny would it be if the next time you see him, he breaks out a bong?
That would probably throw me.
Alaa, you got to try some of this. You got to try this chronic.